Republicans are pretty sure that they don't like President Obama's policies. And I say pretty sure because they sure seem to like those policies when you lie and tell them that they're Trump's policies instead. So they did an experiment where they had a certain set of positions, and they told half the people that it was President Obama who thought this thing, and the other half it was Donald Trump, and they asked him, do you agree with it? So they could see how much the support of a politician does to your support for a policy. So we've got a few of these. Why don't we bring up the first one, give you an idea of what we're talking about here. And you're seeing massive shifts. In this case, both the Democratic voters and the Republican voters massively shifting based not on the policy, because the policy doesn't change, but just whether it's Obama who likes it or Trump who likes it. In this case, universal health care.
Yeah, so I think this is...
In this case, both like it, or to some extent.
Wonderfully instructive in a lot of ways, right? So one, you see that people are attached to names more than they are to policy positions. And I think I'm the only one not surprised. I'm sure John's not surprised either. No one here is. But the Washington pundits believe that there's really a debate and a dialogue going on in Washington. And people are deciding whether they like Lindsey Graham's policy positions better than Marco Rubio's policy positions or the Democrats, right? No, that's not what politics is about, right? So in this case, to be a little bit more accurate, in the four policy positions they picked, we'll show you the other three in a second, Trump actually does agree with Obama, right? So it's not like they didn't lie about it.
Yeah, exactly. It's,
right?
Well, I mean, you can nitpick about would they implement it, what exactly does it mean, and something like that. So
right.
he does agree in some sense, or did at some point agree.
That's right.
Yes.
And so the devil's in the details, but Trump has said, yeah, I'm in favor of universal health care, right? And in fact, I'm not sure that Obama actually is in favor of universal health care. You should be more skeptical of that.
Well, certainly not single payer.
Yeah, and so, and Trump has said positive things about single payers. Trump is more progressive than Obama, at least if you listen to their actual policy positions from time to time. Now, on the other hand, Obama actually did something about it, and if Trump gets into power, do you think he's going to be like, I can't wait to help the poor with health care?
Yeah.
Right? I would be dramatically surprised. So one thing you find out is, like we've been saying all along, these policy positions are irrelevant, right? Irrelevant is too strong, because there are some, as you're going to see, where people are like, no, that one is relevant to me.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. But the other thing that you notice is that people don't even know the politicians' positions at all. So, like, all these people, the most conservative people are supporting Donald Trump, okay? But he has by far the most liberal positions on some issues in the Republican race.
Assuming that he agrees with himself.
Yes.
And it depends on the day.
And sometimes he doesn't. So right now, for example, he says he's pro-life. And if anybody drops out of the race of the other candidates, they usually, according to other polling, their supporters do not go to Donald Trump. Okay, there's one exception. If Mike Huckabee drops out of the race, his supporters do go to Donald Trump. But now here's the great irony. Mike Huckabee is the most pro-life candidate in the race. Among the Republicans, clearly Donald Trump is the most pro-choice. He claims to be pro-life now. He's vigorously supported Planned Parenthood in the past. He said he was pro-choice in the past.
Yeah.
And so why are the most pro-life voters ready to go to the most pro-choice candidate? That's because they don't care. What they care about is, are you strong?
Yeah.
Right? That guy is strong. Me like him. I go with him. Universal health care.
What does that even mean?
I don't know what that means.
The whole universe? That's going to cost a lot. I don't know.
These guys, a lot of them base their vote based on the Bible, and they never even read the Bible.
Yeah. It's long and boring. Poorly written, I think. Yeah, okay, well, why don't we look at a couple more of these that might illustrate some of the points that you made. So let's bring up this next one. This is for the Iran deal, and here they're comparing, do you agree with Kerry as sort of a stand-in for Obama, or agree with Trump? And you see that the Democrats don't really change in this case, but Republicans are way more likely to agree with the exact same freaking opinion if it is Trump's rather than Kerry's.
So if they say, hey, you know, I'm not going to tear up the deal and we're going to abide by it, they're like, John Kerry, weak. Abiding by a deal with Iran. I'm against it. Okay, Trump, abiding by a deal, of course. The guy makes a deal, he abides by it. Yeah. Love Donald Trump. Yes, in favor of the Iran deal.
I can abide by that, yeah. So obviously, the way that they did this experiment is they asked half one thing and half the other. I really wish that they had time to have a group where they said the same question, do you agree with Kerry here? And they're like, no. And then the person doing the test was like, oh shit, I fucked up. I meant Trump. And see if they change right then. Immediately change If they knew it, I bet a significant number would. Okay, the next one here we're going to see, this is, should Social Security be protected from budget cuts? Do you agree with Hillary Clinton or do you agree with Donald Trump? You're seeing a little bit smaller change there. Again, the Democrats not changing, so they are apparently paying a little bit more attention. But support for protecting from budget cuts, they're much more likely if it's Trump's position there.
Okay.
So again, I mean, I guess the good information is that half of the Republicans agree with Hillary Clinton there, even before the Trump manipulation, but far more if it is Donald Trump.
So two points about that. Even if you say to the Republicans, as John was just pointing at, hey, Hillary Clinton wants to protect Social Security. Do you agree with that? They're like, yeah, we do actually. We really love Social Security. 57% of Republicans say, no, I don't want you to touch it. Even if it's Hillary Clinton.
I hate her, man.
Yeah.
But I want Social Security protection.
Yeah. And so this whole idea that the Republicans represent their voters is also a sham. That's another lesson learned from this really interesting study, right? Because the Republicans have been trying to cut Social Security as long as Social Security has been around. They're trying to cut it right now. They call it entitlement reform, and they go around bragging about how they're going to be tougher on entitlement reform. Chris Christie brags about it all the time. Almost all the candidates do, right?
Yeah.
But it turns out their supporters actually love Social Security, right? But they'll vote for those guys anyway, right? One, because they don't understand any of the policy positions, right? Number two, they're not attached to the reality-based world anyway. And then that's why the Republicans, it's not like they're like, oh, ear to the ground. Oh, that's what my voters want. No, that's what my donors want.
Yeah.
My donors want that money transferred into their pockets, and I'll get these Republican schmucks to agree to anything.
Exactly.
But even they are like, nah, not on Social Security. I'm not with you.
And look, maybe this shouldn't be the most surprising one, but just considering how much this term has been demonized, bring up this last one. This is for affirmative action. President Obama or Donald Trump believes that the policy of affirmative action should be kept in place. Do you agree with them? If it's Trump's position, you can getting on towards 35–40% of Republicans to agree with it. The most conservative, most apparently anti-minority Republicans in existence, as long as it's their guy saying it.
Well, so that brings us to a fourth interesting point about this study, which is that if Trump wins, there's some chance there is a tiny silver lining, which is if Trump comes out and says, okay, we're increasing Social Security, and we're doing universal health care, and we're keeping affirmative action, Republicans go, yeah. Yes! Like,
Reagan!
Bernie Sanders has, would be really hard pressed to get single payer.
Yeah.
But if Trump wanted to, and who knows what's in his actual mind, what he actually wants to do, he probably could do it.
Accidentally.
He might do it accidentally.
Shit.
Now I wouldn't bank on that. So
Yeah,
don't
don't vote for him.
It's a dangerous game to play. Finally, on the back to healthcare for 1 second, because there's a great little other factoid in here. The voters in Kentucky, who are largely Republican, hate Obamacare. But Obamacare brought them something called Connect, which is Kentucky's version of Obamacare. In fact, it is only because of Obamacare that Connect exists in Kentucky. The voters in Kentucky love Connect, right? They hate Obamacare, but they actually love what Obamacare has done, which is Connect. It's because they hate the word Obamacare. They like the results of Connect. To the point where Mitch McConnell, in his race, at the end of the race, the Republican leader in the Senate ran on saying, I'm for Connect. He ran based on being pro-Obamacare, and voters in Kentucky were like, that's my kind of Republican. I vote yes for
Well, he knows the voters. He knows they're not going to connect the dots there.